Forget the massive blockbusters and shiny superheroes. The truly terrifying stuff lives in the indie science fiction world, where directors don't have studio executives telling them to tone it down. I've tracked down 10 of the most unsettling, skin-crawling, and mind-bending science fiction movies of the last decade that nobody is talking about. These hidden gems are guaranteed to mess with your head. So, if you're ready to get weird, lock your doors and let's jump into the nightmare. Number 1. Hatching, 2022. We are kicking things off with a Finnish body horror fairy tale that will completely ruin your appetite. Hatching follows Tinja, a young gymnast who lives in a perfectly curated pastel-colored home, governed by her aggressively demanding, mommy vlogger mother. Desperate to find something of her own to nurture under the crushing weight of her mother's expectations, Tinja secretly incubates a strange, mutated egg she finds in the woods. When it finally breaks open, the creature that emerges is a horrifying, bird-like doppelganger. What makes this movie so incredibly disturbing is the creature design. The filmmakers vehemently refused to rely on cheap computer-generated imagery. Instead, they hired animatronics designer Gustav Hogan, the genius behind the physical creatures in the modern Star Wars films, to build a sprawling, terrifying practical puppet. Because the director knew they were going to digitally remove the puppeteers in post-production, Hogan was able to make the creature's body completely disproportionate. He gave it a massive, heavy head supported by a terrifyingly spindly neck and a sunken skeletal ribcage inspired by medical reference photos of eating disorders. The film had to be meticulously scheduled around the fragile animatronic. The crew shot all the clean, emotional close-ups of the actress first, saving the wet, gooey, slime-covered birthing scenes for the very end of the shoot, just in case the water short-circuited the intricate electronics inside the puppet's head. The result is a monster that feels disturbingly real, wet, and heavy. It is a brilliant, disgusting metaphor for the physical toll of perfectionism and the monstrous things that happen when we are forced to swallow our own anger to maintain a flawless family image. Number 2. Meander, 2020. If you suffer from claustrophobia, you might want to look away right now. Meander is a French science fiction thriller directed by Mathieu Turi that operates on pure, unadulterated panic. A young woman wakes up to find herself trapped inside an endless, high-tech network of metal tubes. She has an illuminated bracelet fused to her wrist that acts as a ticking countdown. She must continually crawl forward through the dark, navigating deadly traps involving fire, acid, and razor wire, completely unaware of who put her in this metal maze or why. Think of it as Saw meets Cube, but stripped down to its most agonizing, minimalist core. The visual design of the film is stark, utilizing glowing neon lights and smooth, oppressive metallic surfaces that make the environment feel completely alien. The traps themselves are brilliantly simple. You don't get massive, elaborate swinging pendulums. You get closing walls, rising water, and burning floors. The simplicity makes the environment feel so much more dangerous and indifferent to her suffering. The true horror of Meander, however, is the sheer physical exhaustion it portrays. Actress Gaia Weiss delivers an incredibly taxing athletic performance. You feel every single scrape, burn, and bruised knee as she drags herself through the air ducts. The movie weaponizes the simple human desire to just stand up and stretch your legs. It slowly reveals itself to be a deeply psychological metaphor for the grueling, agonizing process of surviving grief. It forces the audience to ask, how much pain are you willing to endure just to keep moving forward into the dark? Number 3. Color Out of Space, 2019. Howard Phillips Lovecraft is notoriously impossible to adapt to film because his monsters are, by definition, indescribable and unknowable. But director Richard Stanley finally cracked the code with Color Out of Space. The film stars Nicolas Cage as the patriarch of a family who moves to a remote farmstead to escape the stress of city life. When a glowing extraterrestrial meteorite crashes into their front yard, it begins to infect the environment with a strange, unnatural color. This alien presence slowly drives the family mad, while aggressively mutating the local wildlife. The behind-the-scenes story of this film is just as wild as the movie itself. This was Richard Stanley's grand return to feature filmmaking after being infamously fired from the island of Dr. Moreau decades prior. He partnered with Spectrovision, the indie production company founded by Elijah Wood, to create a film of pure cosmic dread. Instead of using the glowing neon green that most movies use to symbolize alien radiation, Stanley used a vibrant, sickeningly beautiful magenta purple. The visual effects team actually utilized fractal geometry, mathematical patterns that represent order within chaos, to create the shifting, hypnotic look of the alien entity. Nicolas Cage delivers a performance that borders on absolute, unhinged genius. Stanley encouraged Cage to improvise, resulting in spontaneous eruptions of screaming insanity that perfectly capture a mind being shattered by cosmic forces. The production even actively avoided genre cliches. Instead of a farmer poking a glowing rock next to a cow, They filled the farm with alpacas to make the setting feel just a little more surreal. The film features some of the most stomach-churning body horror of the decade, hidden beneath a wash of beautiful, hypnotic purple light. Number 4. Aniara, 2018. Aniara is a Swedish masterpiece that provides arguably the most bleak, terrifying, and realistic depiction of space travel ever put to film. Based on a famous 1956 science fiction epic poem by Nobel laureate Harry Martinson, the movie follows a massive commercial spacecraft carrying thousands of passengers to a new, promising colony on Mars. A week into the routine 3-week trip, the ship is struck by debris, forcing the captain to jettison the nuclear fuel. The ship is knocked permanently off course into the vast, inescapable emptiness of deep space. What makes this film so uniquely disturbing is the setting. This isn't a military vessel or a sleek National Aeronautics and Space Administration explorer. It is essentially a giant, floating luxury shopping mall. To keep the budget reasonable, the directors filmed inside actual Scandinavian shopping centers, cruise ships, and Olympic-sized swimming pools. The characters are trapped in an endless purgatory of food courts, arcades, and tacky bars while drifting through the infinite void. It is the ultimate consumerist nightmare, contrasting the triviality of human entertainment with the terrifying reality of the cosmos. The film explores the agonizing societal and psychological collapse of the passengers as they face an eternity in a metal tomb. We watch as hope rots into cultish fanaticism, despair, and sheer existential panic. The ship features an artificial intelligence room called the Mima that allows passengers to experience virtual memories of Earth's lush nature, highlighting the devastating loss of their home planet. Aniara captures the sheer, crushing weight of eternity. It is an existential horror film that will leave you feeling completely insignificant, staring up at the night sky with a profound sense of dread. Number 5. High Life, 2018. Speaking of terrifying isolation in space, we have High Life, directed by the legendary French auteur Claire Denis. This is not a fun, action-packed adventure movie. It is a clinical, deeply uncomfortable exploration of bodily autonomy and human desperation. Robert Pattinson stars alongside Juliette Binoche in a story about a group of death row inmates who are offered a commuted sentence if they agree to pilot a doomed one-way mission to extract energy from a black hole. While on board, they are subjected to horrific, forced reproductive experiments by the ship's ruthless doctor. Claire Denis spent months researching at the European Space Agency in Cologne to ensure the film felt grounded in grueling scientific reality. She discovered that actual astronauts live on strict 24-hour printed schedules to maintain their sanity, and she injected that oppressive, monotonous routine into the script. The spaceship itself does not look futuristic. It looks like a brutalist concrete prison floating in the void. There are no shiny control panels, just rusted metal, bodily fluids, and a tiny, struggling indoor garden that provides their only source of oxygen. The film is incredibly brave in how it depicts human sexuality, violence, and taboo subjects in an enclosed space. It operates on a slow, hypnotic rhythm, punctuated by moments of shocking, visceral brutality. Pattinson gives a quietly devastating performance as a man trying to maintain his final shred of humanity while caring for an infant daughter born into this metal tomb. It is a poetic, deeply weird, and highly controversial film that uses the infinite vacuum of space to magnify the darkest, most feral parts of human nature. Number 6. The Endless, 2017. The Endless is a masterclass in indie filmmaking and cosmic horror. Directed by, produced by, edited by, and starring the duo of Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, this film proves that a terrifying script is worth $100 million in computer-generated imagery. The directors play two brothers, Justin and Aaron, who receive a cryptic video cassette in the mail from the remote, unidentified flying object death cult they escaped a decade earlier as teenagers. The dynamic between the brothers is the emotional core of the film. Justin remembers the camp as a dangerous, suicidal cult, while Aaron, struggling with poverty and isolation in the real world, remembers it as a warm, welcoming family. Hoping to find closure, they agree to return to the commune for just one day. When they arrive, they are shocked to find the cult members haven't aged a single day, and they are quickly confronted with unexplainable, terrifying phenomena in the surrounding woods that suggest the group's bizarre, impossible beliefs might actually be true. Because of their shoestring budget, Benson and Moorhead relied on incredibly clever camera tricks and world building instead of expensive special effects. The cosmic dread is felt through masterful sound design, sudden shifts in the environment, and strange, impossible geometry hidden in the landscape. The movie shares a universe with the director's earlier film, Resolution, expanding their mythology in brilliant ways without ever holding the audience's hand. It is a smart, eerie puzzle of a movie that explores how the fear of the unknown can be far more terrifying than any monster. Number 7. The Void, 2016. If you grew up watching the sticky, slime-covered practical effects of John Carpenter's The Thing, then The Void is the movie you have been waiting for. Directed by Steven Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie, this film is a relentless, blood-soaked nightmare. It follows a local police officer who brings a wounded man to an understaffed rural hospital in the middle of the night. Suddenly, the building is surrounded by a silent, violent cult wearing white cloaks with black triangles on the faces, preventing anyone from leaving. As the staff is trapped inside, the tension skyrockets. The patients and nurses begin transforming into horrifying Lovecraftian flesh monsters, forcing the survivors to barricade themselves in the basement as reality itself begins to tear apart. The behind-the-scenes creation of this film is an incredible triumph of the horror community. The directors are part of the indie film collective Astron 6. Knowing that studio executives would force them to use cheap computer-generated imagery, they launched an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign specifically to fund the practical creature effects, raising over $82,000 from hardcore horror fans. They also called in favors from professional special effects artists who were working on the massive blockbuster Suicide Squad nearby, bringing them in on their days off to help build the monsters. The result is a film that features some of the most grotesque, beautifully crafted practical monsters of the modern era. We are talking about massive, writhing tentacles, peeling skin, exposed skulls, and gallons of fake blood. The movie doesn't bother over-explaining the cosmic lore. It just drops you directly into a chaotic, terrifying siege. Number 8. Bite, 2015. Bite is a film that comes with a legitimate health warning. When it premiered at the Fantasia International Film Festival in Montreal, the marketing team handed out custom-branded barf bags to the audience. That sounds like a cheap promotional gimmick, but it turned out the audience actually needed them. 2 people famously fainted during the screening. 1 person hit their head on the stairs, and an ambulance had to be called to the theater. Directed by Chad Archibald, the film follows Casey, a bride-to-be who goes on a tropical bachelorette vacation. While swimming in a secluded jungle pool, she is bitten by an unknown underwater insect. When she returns to her apartment, she begins to slowly and grotesquely transform. The film traps you inside her small apartment as her living space mirrors her physical decay, slowly turning into a sticky, translucent, egg-filled hive. The body horror in this movie is agonizingly slow and tragically intimate. You watch Casey's humanity slip away as pus, bile, and webbing begin to leak from her body. The makeup effects are incredibly shudder-inducing, focusing on the sickening textures of her peeling skin and the terrifying shift in her predatory instincts as she begins to aggressively defend her nest. It is a deeply claustrophobic film that taps into the universal, primal disgust we all feel toward parasites and infection. If you have a weak stomach, you absolutely need to sit this one out. Number 9. The Incident, 2014. The Incident, originally titled El Incidente, is a Mexican science fiction thriller directed by Isaac Esban that takes a classic Twilight Zone premise and pushes it to its absolute psychological breaking point. The film follows 2 separate groups of people in parallel stories. In the first, a detective chases 2 criminal brothers into a bleak, concrete stairwell. In the second, a blended family goes on a road trip down a desert highway. After hearing a distant, mysterious explosion, both groups find themselves trapped in infinite, inescapable physical spaces. The detective runs down to the ground floor, only to emerge on the 9th floor again. The family drives endlessly down a straight road, constantly passing the exact same gas station. The sheer terror of this film comes from its exploration of the human mind when the physical world completely stops making geographical sense. Esban forces the audience to consider the horrifying logistics of being trapped in a loop. How do you survive when your only source of food is a single, mysteriously replenishing vending machine or a small convenience store rack? The film is a fascinating, deeply disturbing look at human resignation, the crushing reality of confined spaces, and the emotional toll of a repetitive existence. The script is incredibly ambitious for its minimal budget, focusing heavily on the philosophical implications of being stuck in life. The dialogue questions whether these loops are punishments, alternate dimensions, or manifestations of the character's own regrets. It is a bizarre, deeply unsettling puzzle of a movie that will make you terrified of your own daily routine. Number 10. Coherence, 2013. We finish the list with a movie that will make you question the identity of everyone in your own home. Coherence is a masterclass in how to build unbearable, suffocating suspense on a microscopic budget. Directed by James Ward Burkett, the film follows 8 friends who gather for a tense dinner party on the exact night a mysterious comet is passing incredibly close to Earth. When a sudden neighborhood blackout occurs, they step outside to investigate the only other house on the street with its lights on. The terror begins when they look through the windows of that house and realize it is an exact duplicate of their own home, filled with exact duplicates of themselves. The behind-the-scenes story of Coherence is legendary. Burkett shot the entire movie in his own living room over the course of just 5 nights with an estimated budget of only $50,000. There was no traditional script. Instead, Burkett gave his actors daily note cards with specific character motivations and secrets, forcing them to improvise the dialogue. Because the actors didn't know what the others were going to say or do, the panic, the overlapping shouting, and the deep paranoia you see on screen are completely authentic. The film deals with the terrifying concept of Schrödinger's cat and quantum decoherence. As the night progresses, the characters must figure out how to interact with their alternate selves, leading to a breakdown of trust and incredibly dark moral choices. It is an incredibly tight, cerebral, and paranoia-inducing thriller that proves you don't need aliens or monsters to scare an audience. You just need to show them a slightly different version of themselves. So there you have it, 10 science fiction films that will rearrange your gray matter and probably ruin your sleep schedule. From the claustrophobic metal tubes of Meander to the sticky, bug-infested apartment of Bite, these indie masterpieces prove that the best horror always happens on the fringes of science. Let me know in the comments which one of these broke your brain the hardest. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want more deep dives into the weirdest corners of cinema. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.